So, welcome everybody to our ongoing series, the ALMA 2025 Roadmap Webinar Series. It's actually the 2025 Roadmap Webinar Series, not the ALMA. We've been showing a lot of Primo V as well. So this is, I believe, already our sixth session. Before we jump right into the ALMA XSL normalization rules, a brief amount of administrative material. This is the 2025 Roadmap Webinar Series page. I know most, if not all of you, already have links to here because I know you've registered from here. But in any case, I'm going to send this out in the chat just in case somebody doesn't have it. So from here, you can see all of the webinar series, all of the webinars which we've done as part of this series, links to the accompanying resources when there are accompanying resources, links to the recordings, and there's always a recording. So we are now, let's see, we got 3, 4, 5, 6. We're on our sixth session and it's in May. That means we're averaging more than one a month because it's the end of May. It's also the beginning of the lunar month, by the way. So anyone out there celebrating the lunar month, a happy lunar month. End of May on our sixth session here. So ALMA XSL, XSL normalization rules. You've got a link here to a blog, which we're going to point out very shortly with examples of the XSL normalization rules. I'm also pointing out June 26th. We're waiting almost another month because we want to do this after the eLuna conference, which is coming up very soon. ALMA Analytics for Rapid ILL users. Any Rapid ILL users out there will surely like this session. We've got a brand new set of reports, brand new dashboard, focusing specifically on Rapid ILL, though it can be used for others. So stay tuned for there. You can already register for that one. Also, our education webinars page, just making sure everyone's aware of the education webinars page. I'm going to send that out in the chat as well. From here, you can register for upcoming sessions and view the recordings of previous sessions. For example, here, if I were to look for today's, what do we have for XSL? There we are, XSL normalization rules and processes. And you can still register because there's still a session later today. So from here, you can also get the recordings. If we say on demand, for example, we'll get everything which is in the past, and you can search for them and also view the recordings. Here we get all the ones from the past, manage an electronic resources course, et cetera, and view whatever you'd like to view. Watch Now, for example, gives us access to the recordings. We could even, just to see something here, we could take last week's Primo Next Discovery experience if someone wanted to see the recording there. Here in the on demand, here we go, Watch Now. So, few other items and then we'll get right started. Ex Libris YouTube channel. I'll send this out as well, but you can search by this. In Google, just type Ex Libris YouTube or Ex Libris Limited while you're in the YouTube. From here also, you can view previous sessions. If I come to the playlist, for example, we've got a playlist here of the ALMA 2025 Roadmap Webinar Series with all of our previous sessions here. And you can choose whichever one you'd like and view here as well. And we can close that one for now. ALMA 2025 release notes, we're going to get to this in a moment, and let's jump in now. Okay, so the XSL normalization rules is a additional way, in addition to what exists today, which is the Java rules. The normalization rules which exist today can still be used. I'm coming into ALMA for a moment. I'm referring to all of the rules which we've been using for the past 12 years. I'm just going to open up any rule here just to show something. So this is a typical existing rule today using the Java rules and the various functions such as add field, etc., such as add subfield, remove field, etc. In addition to this existing functionality of the Java rules, we have added additional functionality whereby the normalization rules can be created via XSL, an XSL style sheet. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. And the way this came about was over the years, there have been various requests for additional functionality in the Java rules and additional requests that there be a way to create the normalization rules using something, let's call it more standard than the Java rules, which is an existing language, by the way. It's not a language we made up, those Java rules, but we had to adapt it, of course, for the library world. Here's a typical example of an ideas exchange request to be able to use a normalization rule to resequence mark fields. There was nothing like that. There is nothing like that in the Java rules. However, it's very easy to do with an XSL style sheet. We're going to take a look at this among our many examples. So that's how this came about. It's a combination of requests for additional functionality which don't exist in the rules and a request that there be a standardized way of creating normalization rules using a standard type of programming language. Although I'm not quite sure we could call an XSL style sheet a programming language, but let's call it a standard method of being able to manipulate data. Also, there's a blog we've made here containing many different examples of the normalization rules using Alma XSL. Using XSL. Those of you who deal with normalization rules know we already have a blog that's probably got up to 1,000 now, without an exaggeration. Examples, that's the Alma Normalization Rules blog. So we've created a new one here for Alma XSL normalization rule examples. And I'm going to send this out in the chat as well, though it's also very easy to find via Google or via Developers Network. So here we've got a brief introduction and then all kinds of examples of different XSL style sheets which do different functionalities. For example, adds a 700. This, by the way, is appropriate for Unimark records. Adds a 700 with all different kinds of fields and subfields. This one here adds the 336, 337, 338 RDA fields if the 245H has electronic resource, and then it gets rid of that 245H, so it's converting to RDA. I'm not going to go through the whole blog here, but it's got a lot of different examples here. So that's the brief introduction. We're going to jump right in now and start creating some rules, looking at some rules, etc. And while we're at it, let's take a look at our plan. So we're going to look at the configuration. There's one configuration that needs to be defined as true, and we'll look at that. We'll see that when we create a new normalization rule, we have a new option there, type XSL. It's a new option unless you are already using Dublin Core. We'll save that for the side. We're going to copy an existing rule from the community and change it. We're going to use two examples there. Then we're going to create a new rule. We might actually only do one example here. We'll see how our time is. We're going to create a new rule using the AI option of our choice. When I say the AI option of our choice, you'll see what we mean when we do that. Then we're going to take that rule which we make here, and we're going to make a normalization process from that rule. And then we're going to run that normalization process on a set. We're fortunate enough to have with us today Mr. Erez Shabo from Product Management. Welcome, Erez, and thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to join us. We're going to save 10 to 15 minutes at the end for Erez. So if you have questions which relate to the development plans, why we may have developed in a certain way, we have Erez here to talk to us about all different aspects of the development around this new feature. So let's jump right in now with the configuration. And that is mentioned, by the way, in the release notes here. So in the release notes for May, I'm in the May 2025 release notes. So there's a new enable XSL normalization rules parameter, and that needs to be defined as true. Let's take a look at that. So I'm in a standard Alma right now, standard May 2025 release. I'm not looking at some future development. You all have this now in your environments. If we come to configuration and resources and general other settings, we'll see here that parameter which we just saw in the release notes, enable XSL normalization rules. So in order to use this new feature, this needs to be defined as true. If you start checking this after the session and say, wow, that sounds like a great new feature, I'm ready to start using it, and you don't see it, it's probably because you don't have the option here true. So this is the only thing that needs to be defined. Of course, you need the cataloger roles, but if you can now create a normalization rule in the current method, if you define this as true, you'll also be able to do it via the XSL. So let's now take a look at how this works. I'm going to go into the metadata editor, and I'll get out of there just so we can go into anywhere else. I'm going to choose anything else just so I'm starting there fresh. Let's take here diversity and inclusion in libraries. And perhaps we'll use that as our examples today. So if I switch now to the rules, I'm switching to the rules tab because I want to create a new rule. And I choose any rule, choosing an old rule, just so I'm in the rules now, because to create a new rule, we need to be in the rules tab here. And I say new, and I'm going to create a normalization rule. So here's the new option here that we can choose XSL. We're not going to create a rule right now. We're going to look at an existing rule and duplicate it. But this is the way we create an XSL rule. There's a new option here, type XSL. This option, type XSL, will exist only if you have that parameter that we saw a moment ago defined as true. The enable XSL normalization rules parameter is defined as true. Therefore, we have the true here. Excuse me, therefore we have the XSL option. So let's take a look at a rule. And we've got a lot of rules now with XSL in them that you can copy from the community. So all of these here I've got in my environment, and they are also here in the community. And as you know, rules in the community, I'm here in the community, and these are all XSL rules. As you know, you can duplicate these into your institution. So let's do that. Let's take this one here while we're on it. This says add 913 with subfield A with subfield B with specific text if not already exist. So let's say, for example, I want to now add a field, not 913. I want to do something similar. Rather than creating a rule from scratch, there's usually no need to create a rule from scratch. That's the case also with the non-XSL rules. You can usually take an existing one, either from the community or from that blog that's got several's an understatement, examples, and copy and start changing them around. So let's take this 913. Let's say I want to add a 914. And let's say I don't want to add a subfield A and a subfield B. I want to add a subfield A and a subfield Z. So I'll copy this one. I'll say duplicate. And let's call this now, I'm going to call it W1, Webinar 1, just so we can easily find it. All the rules we're going to make today, we're going to call W1. And let's call this W1, because we have Webinar 2 this afternoon. Let's say I want to add a 914. I'm just giving it a name. Add 1914 with subfield A, and let's say subfield Z with specific text if not already exist. Okay, so I've copied an XSL rule from the community, and now we're going to change it around a bit. So save. Here's the rule. As you can see, it's an XSL style sheet. Again, we're going to create one from scratch soon. We're just going step by step here. It's an XSL style sheet. I can see here that it copies the whole record. I'll make this a little larger. It copies the whole record. Then it checks to see if I have a 913 with the subfield A and the subfield B with certain text. And if I do not data field, blah, 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 then it adds them. Let's see what it does now before we start changing it for our specific needs. So let's go to our record, diversity and inclusion in libraries, and we're just going to test now the existing. I just made the screen a little larger too. I don't want to make it too large because then all the resolution starts going on top of each other, the various panes, etc. Window panes. Okay, so let's now put this in a split screen mode. And in the right, we'll put that rule because now we just want to see what it does before we change it for our needs. So we'll go to the rules. We'll take that one we just added now, which has a W1. There we are. That now we know why we gave it that unique name. Here it is. Here's my record on the left, and I want to test it. So I'm going to say preview on the right. And I see here it added a 913 field with introduction to library science, Professor A. Chen. Didn't exist in the original record, exists in the new one. So now let's change this to meet our needs. So we want to add a 914 with subfield A, subfield Z. So let's, instead of changing that here, let's change this in a notepad. I'm going to make a new tab here, and I'm just going to change it here. So it's going to be pretty simple to change this. I'm going to change anywhere where I have 913 to 914. And I don't want it to add and check introduction to library science. Perhaps I want this to be information science. So it's checking now if test not data field 914 subfield A information science. Then it's going to add information science to subfield A of 914. So here, when it's putting it in, I'm going to change this to information science. And I don't want it checking on a subfield B. I want it checking on a subfield Z. And perhaps it's checking information science. I'll keep that a geographic area, subfield Z, as if it was a 650. And we'll also add it here. So I have copied a rule from the community, and I've changed it. I just put it in Notepad here just to change it a little more easily than inside the metadata editor. I'll put it in here. Here's my new rule. You see I've got the 914s being checked. I will save it. If I have an error in the rule, it won't let me save it. And now we'll do a preview. Let's see if it works. Preview. And I see it did add it, but we want to make sure it really works. We want to make sure if I already have that field that it's not adding it twice. So I'm going to add it here to my sample record that we're working on. We'll say add field, a 914. And now we want to make sure that the rule really works and it's not going to add it twice because I already have it. So here we'll say preview again. And it did add it. Oh, I know why it added it. I know exactly why it added it, because I added it with the B. Back to normalization rules. Here, this needs to be a Z. Because we're checking on the Z, but we're adding a B. Now we add a Z. Everything is good. We were checking on one field, adding a different field, so it added it twice. Now we've got it set correctly. Preview. Okay, this is a B and a Z. They're not the same, so everything is good. If I change this now to a Z here, and we run it again, so my original record has the field already. I should not get it twice. And I don't get it twice. It's already there. If I were to change there, instead of library information science Poland, I've got information science Krakow, for example, and I try it. Preview. Now it does have it because the field did not exist as it was checked. So in sum, we copied a rule, an XSL rule from the community, changed it around a bit, and then tested it, and everything works. So we have a rule now, an XSL rule doing what we want. We didn't create it from scratch. We're going to do that. We just used one that already existed. Let's do that one more time on something a tad more complex. Not very complex, but a tad more complex. And let's take a slightly different record. I'm going to do that search again for diversity and inclusion in libraries. And this time I'm going to take the relevant library essays on adapting to changing needs. We're going to play with this record now. So let's say now I want to create a rule which is going to remove the 650 if I have a second indicator 7 and let's say fast, just because I see I've got examples of that. So I'm going to remove anything with 650 second indicator 7, subfield 2 fast, I want to remove, and I'll keep the others. Let's just see if we got a significant amount here to play with, and I see we do. I'm going to check this one as well. And 650 second indicator 7. These also have the fast. Okay. So let's go get a rule which does a similar function, change it around, and make our rule. So we'll switch to the Rules tab, and I'm going to search again for XSL. And let's see what we got in the community. And let's see, 657. I believe we have one here that removes them. I'm just going to make this a little larger. And let's say, here we go. This one here, delete all 650 fields with second indicator 7 and subfield 2 YLK. So we'll just change this for our own needs. I will copy this, duplicate, and I'll call this W1 again. And we'll say, delete all 650 fields with second indicator 7 and subfield 2 GND. And we'll give it the same name here, or same description. W1, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, and save. Let's test it out. We'll get our record open. Split screen mode. Let's take, okay, we'll keep this one. Split screen mode. And now we'll get our rule. Going to the rules. Now I can just look for W1. And here it is. So right now it's getting rid of anything with 650 second indicator 7 with a YLK, just as it stated in the name. Right now I don't have any 650s with second indicator 7 YLK. I do have many with fast. Let's make an example here. I'm going to take this libraries and minorities, and I'm going to add a field here, which is going to be a 650, second indicator 7, and this time it will have a subfield 2 GND. So this one should get deleted when I make my rule for GND, and this one should not. I'm going to do another little test. Let's take this one, and again we'll add a field. And we'll say this also is a 657. And this time we're going to put a capital GND because we say it's case insensitive, as it is here, case insensitive. So now we've got two examples which should be deleted and several examples which should not be deleted. And also, if we really want to test it, not that we don't trust Alma, but let's really test it. Let's say I have a 650 with some other subfield or some other indicator and second indicator. So this one should not get deleted because even though I have subfield 2, I don't have second indicator 7. Okay, now let's change our rule here. Again, let's put it in, you wrote 657 in the first field you added. Oh, thank you for pointing that out to me. This is someone said I put a 6. Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I'm glad to see people are paying better attention than I am. Okay, so we have 650, 650, 650. Okay. Let's take this with us again to Notepad simply because I find it easier to play around here. By the way, let me zoom here so people can see better. Okay, so let's say here, suppress 650, da 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 da. We're going to change this to GND. This is in the comment. It really doesn't matter, but we'll make it official. So it's saying 650, indicator 27, and subfield 2. This is the translate. It's taking anything capital to lowercase and then working on the lowercase. So here I'm going to put it GND. That should do it. I've simply changed the YLK to GND because we want to delete the GND. We don't want to create it all from scratch. Someone already kindly contributed to the community. We just changed it around a bit. Let's now put that here. Now we've got the GND here. Save. Let's do a preview. Okay, let's start looking at what we got. Here's our 650s on the right. Here's our 650s on the left. Okay, so here we've got libraries and minorities GND. Okay, this one didn't get deleted. That's correct because it has second indicator 0. However, this one did get deleted. We don't have that on the right. We don't have a capital GND. And this one here also got deleted. You can see here we don't have a GND. Okay, so we have now gotten to here where we have copied 2 existing rules, changed them to meet our needs. Now, let's create a brand new rule from scratch. And let's create a rule from scratch which does what was originally requested in one of the impetus for this development. And that is being able to make a normalization rule which resequences the fields. So as you know in ALMA today, let's go take a look at an example of what's going on. In ALMA, we have built in to the existing rules a method to sort, oops, sorry about that, a method to sort within the 500, with all that the 500s will be together, the 600s will be together, the 700s will be together. However, the fields don't sort within those groups. For example, here we're looking at the relevant library essays, etc. We have a 505 and a 504. I'm going to take this 504 and put it after the 520. So I'm going to say add field here, and I'll take this 504. I'll put it here. It's out of order now. So I wouldn't exactly call it out of order. Let's say it's not numerically sorted. So that's one example. I got 505, 520, 504. Then I will, and we have a 651. I'm going to take this 651 and stick it right here. Add field. 651. Okay, so now I have a 651 before a 650. That's a 651.7. And I'll get rid of it here. And we really want to cause problems here, so we're going to stick a 655 smack dab in the middle. 655, second indicator 7. Let's take this one here. So I'll remove this field that I'm on. and I'll put it here instead. So now I have a 655 right in the middle, and let's also throw in a 710. Add field, just so I have things out of order. 710, and I'll just put anything here. Institute for Library Science. Okay.
You're 710.
710. Okay, 701 would also work, actually. It's also out of order, but we'll make it a little more official. Okay, so now I've got a corporate name, the Institute for Library Science of Krakow. Let's save. So right now I'm not using any kind of normalization rule. It sorts, or let's say it puts together all the 5XX, 6XX, 7XX, but it doesn't sort within those groups. So right now my 504 is after 520, which is not in numerical order. My 651 is smack dab between two 650s, and I got a 655 smack dab between two 650s here. And I've got a 710 before 700. So now we're going to create a new rule. And as we stated here, with the AI of our choice. So let's go use the AI of our choice. I'm going to use Ask Claude. And let's tell Claude, and we need to be very specific. I always imagine this like I'm walking over to the cubicle or the office of a new programmer here, or even an experienced programmer, and you give a programmer something, a program to write, needs very specific specifications, need to explain to him or her exactly what to do, perhaps also even give an example. So let's say, please create, and I'll make sure I don't give spelling errors to Claude, although Claude can handle spelling errors. Please create an XSL style sheet that works on a Mark 21 bibliographic record, even though these will also work on Unimark, etc. There's even an example in the blog. On a Mark 21 bibliographic record, in sorts all of the data fields numerically. Okay, so that should be enough for him or her. But let's be a little more specific. Let's say numerically is not a word, numerically. For example, let's say 600 should come before 601, and 651 should come before 655. Just as an example, let's even give the opposite. And 600 should come before 601. Let's say, for example, 600 should come before 601, and let's say 655 should come after 650. Even though what we stated is already clear, but let's also tell him or her, do not take into account the indicators. For example, we don't want 650 second indicator 7 on purpose coming after 650 second indicator 0. If we did, we could state that here, but in our case, we don't. Do not take into account the indicators of the data fields. And do not take into account the text of the subfields. For example, we don't care if we got a 650 second indicator 7 library science. We don't care if it comes before or after information science, even though L is after I. Text of the subfields. And just so we're clear, sort only by the data fields. Okay, let's see what we got here. Please create an XSL style sheet. Works on a Mark 21 bibliographic record. Sorts all the data fields numerical. For example, 600 before 601. 655 after 650. Don't take into account the indicators of the data fields and don't take into account text. Okay, sort only by. Okay, he would probably know that I meant that by, but we won't make him work too hard. Here we go. Boom. Okay. Drafting an artifact. There he goes. He's almost as fast as our programmers. Our programmers write faster than this and even better, but we're just showing that Claude can do it as well. Okay, so we got it. I'm not even going to read it. I'm not even going to try to decipher it, although it is fun to do that. I'm going to say copy. Now, I'm going to stress here, this doesn't always work the first time. Sometimes you need to go in and reply to Claude and say, hey, Claude, they all worked except for whatever. Can you do whatever? Or rephrase it, whatever. But maybe it will work on the first shot. So I'm going to say copy here. Let's come to the metadata editor. And let's make our new rule now. So we'll say new. Oh, I got to go to rules in order to get that menu. So I'm going to say new normalization. I'll call this W1, webinar 1, sort fields. Sort fields. By the way, I've created these also for subfields. You can also sort your subfields. There, you don't want them numerically, alphabetically. Sometimes you want them different, but you can sort it and tell them exactly how you want it sorted. Sort fields numerically, we'll call it. And here as well. Okay, I still have in my mouse. Here we're stressing that we're doing XSL. I also want this shared because we're going to make a normalization process with this. Save. Here we go. I'm pasting what I copied from Claude. Boom. Okay. Let's save. So far, so good. Now let's test it. Moment we've all been waiting for. So we've got our sample record here. Which one did we just play around with? This one, was it the diversity or the relevant? Let's see. Here's my 50. Yep, here's my, no, these are in order. It must be this one. Okay, so I'm in the relevant library, essays on adapting changing needs. And I've got my 504 at the end, which is not good. It's after 520. I've got my 651 between two 650s. I got my 655 between two 650s. And I've got my 710 before the 700s. Let's test it and see what happens. Who thinks it's going to work on the first shot? Let's take a look. Let's see what kind of confidence our participants have in Alma. We've got now, let me stop. I'm just going to stop sharing for 1 second here. Let's see. We got 37 participants. Raise your hand if you think it's going to work on the first shot. Boaz, I'm surprised. You didn't raise your hand? You don't, after all these years with us, you don't think it's going to work on the first shot? Okay, Boaz raised his hand. Now he thinks it's going to work on the first shot. Okay, here we go. I'm going to share again. Let's give it a try. So we'll split. We'll go get our new rule. I'm in rules, normalization. Here's the sort fields numerically and preview. Okay, scrolling down. 504 is at the beginning, 505 and 520. So it worked on the 500s. Right here on the left, we have 505, 520, 504. Here it sorted them correctly, 504, 505, 520. 650s, let's see what happened here. If my 655 is still out of order, if my 651 is still out of order, they look good to me. 650, 651, 655, everything is perfect. You can see that right here. 700, 710 is at the end. Everything worked wonderfully. Okay, now let's take that and put it in a normalization process because there's a slight change here also with the normalization processes. And then we're going to run it on this set. By the way, I'm going to change my other record too, this one here. I'm just going to put one thing out of order here because I want to run it on this one as well. I'm going to put here a 650. Oh, here we do have one out of order. Great. We got a 651 in the middle. So we have good examples on all of them. Here too, we got a 651 here. We got a 610 in the middle. Great. So I'm going to save that as it is. Now we're going to create the normalization process. So configuration, let's let that save. Configuration, resources, this is all the same so far. Metadata configuration, Mark 21 bibliographic. Normalization processes, we will add a process. Let's call this W1 sort the mark fields numerically. Okay. Give it the same one here. Next. Okay, here we have something slightly different. When we add the task until now with the already existing normalization rules, we chose here marked rule normalization. Now we're going to choose Mark XSL normalization. It's actually not a new task because for Dublin Core, people were using this already. For non-Dublin Core records, it's a new task. We're going to choose that, add and close. Next. Now we're going to choose the rule that we just made that we copied from Claude. So ours all start with W1. There it is. Save. So now we have a process. Before we run the process on a set, let's do the process via enhance the record just to make sure it works. So let's come back. And let's say we want, we want to go to the metadata editor. So let's test this one. You see here we've got the 651 United States in the middle of two 650s, and we've got a 610 between two 650s. And let's take this 700 and put it after the 776. So we'll say add field 700, first indicator 1, and I'll remove Beverly from here. I will save just to make sure it's saving not in proper order as well. And now we'll check it with enhance the record. Before we run it on a whole set, we're going to check it with enhance the record. So let's see. Here's my bad 776. Here's my bad 651. Here's another bad 651, and we're good. Here we go. Editing actions, enhance the record, W1. Here it is. W1, sort the fields numerically. I'm going to choose that one. Okay. It's working, and let's see what happened. So everything looks good here. We got 610s, 650s, 651s are all at the end, 655s that put my 776 on the bottom. And as expected, it worked. But I'm not going to save the record. I'm going to run now that normalization process that contains an XSL rule that uses the XSL marked rule normalization task, and we're going to run it on a set. So let's save these as a set. These two records, I'm going to say save filter and query, and I'll call this W1 set. I won't make it private, even though that doesn't matter, and save. Okay, let's release these from the metadata editor. Let's go see our set and confirm that our records are not in order in the set, admin manage sets. Here's my set, content. Okay, here's the first one. 504 after 520. So I got at least one example. There's more examples here, but we got at least one. Here's a 651 not in order. Here's a 655 not in order. Okay, that's the first record. Second record. 651 smack dab between two 650s, another 651 in middle, and the 776 in middle. Now we're going to run that normalization process that we just made on the set that contains these two records. So we'll say run a job, and W1, there it is. Next. Here's our set. Next. There's our normalization rule. And we're going to run it, submit. And she's off and running. Now, refresh, finalizing. Wow, that was quick. She's done, 2 records processed. Let's go take a look. Admin manage sets. You know what? Let's put these in the metadata editor even. Catalog set. What a nice feature. Now we'll just go right into the metadata editor and we've got our records here. So let's see what happened. 651s are after 650s, 655, my 700s are in order. Wonderful. And not only that, if I click here, I see it was now updated by the system 748 because I'm in Europe time. Updated by system, system being the job. And if I say view related data, view versions, here's my previous version, which I can view. And I see here, they were out of order. I'm going to restore this one, just so I got nice records. Let's take a look at our second example. It also got fixed, 504, 505, 520. In the 650s, I got 651 after 650, 655s all at the end, 710 after 700s. Everything is good here. Same here. If I say view versions, and we look at the most recent version, we will see that previously they were out of order with my 504 after the 520. Now my 504 is at the beginning where it should be. And down here, my 710, oh, that was a good one. My 650, oh, okay, so it fixed here. I'm going to restore. Okay, so we have 10 minutes left. Erez, I'm going to turn it over to you. I will stop sharing. I will make sure you have all the positions you need. You are the presenter, so take it away. If any questions came in, feel free to respond. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Yoel. There were some questions in the chat that I already answered, but I want to repeat them. Matthew, if I'm not mistaken, asked about the differences between XSL and XSLT. So XSL, as you may know, is an extensible style sheet language. This is the name of the language, but it's intended mainly to be used for manipulation of XSLs. So you'll hear it in some other forms of it. So it's either XSL or XSLT, where the T stands for transformation. So basically you use XSL for transforming XML from one form to another. So you will either hear or read about it as XSL or XSLT. Another good question was about mixing rules and XSL rules in one process, and the answer is yes. You can mix and match any type of rules in one process. If you have one rule and you want to add an additional part and you want to use now instead of rules XSL, this is another option. So your you can mix and match, wrapping them under one process. Another question that came up, good one as well. Alma supports XSL version 3, so up to version 3. So you can either use functions in all three versions, 1, 2, and 3. Any other questions that I missed? Okay, I want to clarify one thing that we start with. Yoel mentioned a new parameter that enables the new functionality. So if some of you work with a Dublin core, you probably noticed that when creating a normalization rules, you have the XSL options. However, if you don't turn the new parameter, you will be able to create those rules, but when trying to apply them on a marked record, that will not work. So even if you have the options in the UI when creating the rules, if you didn't turn on the new parameter, they will not be working on any mark record. So that is a clarification. So there are no confusions. Yeah. Other questions? Anyone?
Looks like we got them all, Erez.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Okay, so thanks everybody. We will be posting this recording as usual to our YouTube's channel. It will also be available from the 2025 Roadmap webinar series. And we hope to see you next month for the Rapid ILL webinar, Rapid ILL Analytics webinar. Thanks everybody and have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.